All right, NFTs, good or bad for Bitcoin? Today we're going to dive into exactly what that might mean for the behemoth Bitcoin. And I think a lot of people have been asking the question, what are ordinals? How does this affect Bitcoin long term? Does it have any effect on the network itself? We're going to try to answer all those questions for you. It's going to be a good one today. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Before we get started, I do want to thank our sponsor today, and that is iTrust Capital. You guys are looking at maybe long-term investment in Bitcoin. You're thinking, well, I don't want to sell it. I want to be able to put this away, hodl it, and be able to earn money on this. And one of the best ways to do that is through an IRA, and iTrust is the spot to take. A couple of things you can do over on iTrust is you can invest in crypto, you can do your own direction around gold, even silver, all within your IRA. The cool thing, there are no monthly fees. All you do is pay on a per trade basis. It's very easy to get started. And also, one of the biggest things I like about iTrust is the ability to learn about what you can do in these kinds of situations. They do a tremendous job around education, so make sure and check that out. If you want to think about stability in protecting your assets, secure storage, regulated custodian, and then also just the size of what iTrust is doing. 6 billion in transactions, 185K in terms of accounts created, and over 2,000 five-star ratings. This is one of the best ones out there. Make sure and use our link below to get a $100 credit, and you're gonna love it. Make sure and do that and help the channel out. And let's get into it today. I want to talk to Paul Sztorc, who's been on our show before from Layer-2 Labs. So I want to bring him in real quick. Hey, Paul, welcome back into the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, all right. So we had such a good conversation last time around Layer-2, side chains, what Bitcoin's future might look like. Layer-2 Labs, obviously, I think a lot of people learned about Layer-2 Labs for the first time. Just a quick refresher, Layer-2 Labs, what are you guys trying to do there? Give me just a flash.
Well, we emphasize a certain type of layer two called the sidechain, and I have this BIP 300 idea that has been around for a very long time, and a lot of people feel it has an enormous amount of potential, especially me, the creator. And so we raised some money to get it going, and now it has it's sort of getting much more attention. And now I think people. So basically, the idea is lets you use altcoin on top of Bitcoin, the altcoin
Yep.
technology. So you could
Yep.
you have like a bit Zcash or a bit Ethereum.
Mm-hmm.
You're on the Bitcoin network, and maybe you send your coins to the Lightning Network, or maybe you send them to like bit Ethereum. And then once they're over there, you have Bitcoin, and you can do whatever Ethereum can do. So this is the ability to copy the whole spectrum. It's the whole spectrum of use cases. Any altcoin that's already been built, something that maybe isn't as private or isn't as decentralized, in addition to having the super private, super decentralized Bitcoin, you have now the access to the whole spectrum. The user can opt into whatever software they want, and developers can
Yeah,
make any software they want. So
for
it's a
sure.
big idea.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating to me when we had a chance to sit down. For those of you viewing today, make sure and check that video out because Paul and I jump into that very topic at length around what the future of Bitcoin is. Today, we want to talk about ordinals. And, in the pre-show, we kind of got into that this has been happening for quite a while. And there's a reason that we'll talk about maybe why we're just now seeing this really come to light. But give us a little history on Bitcoin and NFTs, because this is not a new idea.
Right, it's very, very old. In fact, it even predates Bitcoin to some extent. There's a post that Hal Finney made about like cryptographic trading cards or something like that, where he endorses this idea. And of course, Hal Finney was the first person to
Right.
receive Bitcoin transaction. Many people think Hal Finney may be Satoshi himself. He did reusable proof of work in 2004, I think. So Hal Finney was right in the direct center of the beginning of this entire industry. He was just a huge person, and he has a little post about this. And then in Bitcoin, we had various things. We had colored coins, December 2012, Manny Rosenfeld. We had Peter Todd worked on Chroma Wallet, I think. I hope that I'm remembering that correctly. We had Counterparty. We had so we had quite a few things. We had not only do we have what's the other one? We had a Mastercoin. Mastercoin was this kind of convoluted thing at the time, but one of the Mastercoin use cases eventually became Tether, and eventually became Omni, and so it eventually became this huge project. So the idea of we're going to use the Bitcoin blockchain for an asset that is other than Bitcoin is, in fact, as old as Bitcoin itself or even older.
Right. So Ordinals obviously gets to the light here over the past year through kind of the model of what Stacks is doing. Why do you think Ordinals, using essentially an NFT within the Bitcoin network, came to light at this stage and actually was able to break through where all of these other projects just were never able to really kind of get their day in the sun?
Well, I can only give you my guess, which is I think it does have some technical features that are kind of unique, but I think it's more about timing. But we can go. The technical features are like I don't think they're very. I don't think they actually make much of a difference because, like I was saying, this idea is very old. And what I really think happened instead was that nothing new had really been happening in Bitcoin in a while, and this was something that it's already, it couldn't be stopped. It's already out there. So it was an idea that permissionless innovation, you can call it, where
Right.
people could already there's no way to stop this type of thing. So if people are just doing it and having fun, the fees were very low, so it didn't really cost very much to do this at all. And this idea of, I think it made a kind of cultural statement. The idea that you can just fill an entire Bitcoin block up for not that much money. That's a kind of a very cheap advertisement in a way.
Yeah.
You're in the blockchain. Everyone's got a store. It had a kind of a hack value or even like a troll value kind of a thing where everyone's running all these nodes as a service, and you can force them to store your your image on their computer. It has like a funny kind of a thing, and I think that's really what was going on. Is just like not a lot of novelty in Bitcoin for a while, latent appetite for this NFT bit assets type thing, which had been around for many years and has been growing and growing. It's of course grows and collapses in cycles, but I think it's just part of it was just that this is something that people wanted, and the time is so. This is combination of things. I see it as mostly a timing, cultural thing.
Well, listen, timing works because in a lot of technology
Sure
adoption, timing is very critical. We've seen it in social media, we've seen it in mobile. Web3, I think, will have its day of timing in terms of how it's utilized. And obviously here with Bitcoin and NFTs, because of what's happening within the NFT ecosystem, the explosion occurs, of course, occurring. I'm kind of curious why a true Bitcoin OG did not do this. Do you feel it has been one of those things where they just want to keep all of these kinds of solutions at arm's length and don't want these kinds of changes to occur?
Well, let me unpack the cultural piece of it, because the Bitcoin culture, which I consider myself a part of for a very long time, it as time has gone on, the kind of thing that gets you renown and fame and fortune, that has changed a lot over time. And after the block size war, mostly people wanted to focus on like not breaking things. That's one aspect. So all changes decreased. There's not as much changing. And another aspect that happened after the block size war, after 2017, was the idea that the people who are trying to spend Bitcoin or actually use Bitcoin or enjoy Bitcoin, those were the people who lost to the scaling war. So you never wanted to look like those people. You never wanted to use, you didn't want to resemble like whoever, a Roger Ver or something, because in the BTC community, because you didn't want to make it seem as though you understood Bitcoin to be for using. It was supposed to be like it's a digital gold, it's a pet rock, and you just buy it, and then eventually everyone will want it, and they'll come crawling back, and then they'll give you one citadel for one Bitcoin. So you're not supposed to like be using it today. You're supposed to be stacking, right? Mm-hmm. So that was kind of the idea that's the idea that's taking hold now. So an OG person wouldn't win any credibility by doing this because it's a kind of a heterodox thing.
So you're feeling that it really needed to be new blood coming into the space, seeing the opportunity. Obviously, that the technology was already in place for this to occur. And if you think about just how quickly this has run up here, I'm looking at inscriptions right now by fee rate over here on Dune. I mean, this all really began at the end of January and, of course, exploded right through in 2 weeks. Ordinals. This, of course, is the track right here on inscription spending per block, which now has, I think the last number I saw was around 600 million in miner fees that has been increased. So this is a big benefit for miners in the sense of, you know, just being able to obviously yield within the Bitcoin network. How do you think this plays out in, say, the next 6 months to a year for miners, especially as we see things start to evolve for Bitcoin?
Well, it's a very good question because it has been good for miners. It brings up their revenue. But the question is, how long will it last? It only lasts as long as people are willing to pay. I think it's good. I see the NFT world as a subset of the art world, and the art world, it loves novelty. You know, you can have the banana with the duct tape, and that could be a $10 million piece of art, but only until the fashions change, and then people are going
That's
to
right.
want whatever they want. You know, remember that was that one famous sculpture that was like a urinal or something. You know, like that. What's that called? Like Brutism or something. So they have so like it's like a fashions may change and then this idea may fall out of favor. But one thing that I think this will install into everyone's mind is the idea of the security budget, the idea that if you're willing to pay enough to buy, if you're willing to outbid what everyone will pay for the fees, then you can be the owner of the block. And the
Right.
blockchain really is its own form of media. It's this medium that you can broadcast into, and that everyone will have to obtain and also reproduce, serve back to you on request. Because if that's not the case, then no one will ever know whether or not that block was valid,
Exactly.
and that will destroy the project. So everyone is on the hook. This is what the whole block size war was about: was that everyone's on the hook for getting all the blocks, getting all the transactions in the blocks, is validating them all, and then storing them on your computer and serving them back to people. So you're on the hook for this all the time. And that's why people wanted the blocks to be very small, because
Exactly.
that's an imposition.
Well, it's almost as if it's been, I mean, some people would say hijacked. You know, if you look at just this article, Bitcoin miners already making near 600K from NFT transactions. And then if you look at kind of what's happening, we showed earlier that it was images mostly in the media types. There could be many things though that could be essentially used within this. But again, this has been mostly used for peer-to-peer. Now we're looking at a different, model here that really could change one, not only the transaction fees, because that's most likely going to continue to go up, and back to your point, timing and culture. You bring timing, culture, capability all together at once, and you may have a whole new narrative of how Bitcoin could be used in both the near and long-term future. Is this something that you would look at and say this is a bad thing for Bitcoin? Because some people would say that, or do you think this is a good thing for Bitcoin?
Well, that's a good question, because there's many layers. There's like it couldn't. There's the idea of like it has many layers. Like I personally would not buy any of these ordinals. So like that is like on that layer, I think it's sort of just a bad idea in general, because I personally would not. I'm not interested in this service. But on a different level, we have to get to the idea. I think we need to get people to understand that we do want people to use Bitcoin for things. And we do want, we can't just, the whole time, we don't want the idea that we want to discourage use for no reason. In the Bitcoin world, that is a losing idea, I think.
Right. Yeah. Which means in your case is this is a good thing in the sense of how to really the utility of Bitcoin as a whole. I think there is, from the
Yes.
Bitcoiners community out there, most of which I've seen and talked with at length about this, is that it feels as though there's almost a standoffishness to even mention or talk about this very issue. Why do you think that is? Back to culture?
Yes, it's the culture. The Orthodox Bitcoin culture has this idea that no one would want to use Bitcoin for anything, and you would just want to stack, and you would just buy more and more.
Yeah.
It also has an idea that like Bitcoin is already perfect. So the idea of something new being an improvement inherently rams a freight train into that idea, the idea that Bitcoin has already achieved its perfect state. So you can't
Right.
have any improvements to it, really. So
Yeah.
I
The
think it is
authors.
cultural. It is the standoffishness is that, say, if you're part of the one group, you think Bitcoin's perfect. Well, now this is weird. You have nothing. Something new has happened. A new vocab word has come out, ordinals, and you have nothing to say. So there's nothing to say about that. You can't just say like whatever little line you're going to say, like it's number go up or whatever. So you
Yeah.
can't do that. If you think that no one should be spending Bitcoin, now you have a situation where people are happy customers spending it, and they're enjoying themselves and having fun. Now you're going to be the anti-fun person. So
Right.
what's to say about that? So
Wow.
you got a lot of groups of people who either have nothing to say, or it would only embarrass them to say they would be the anti-fun people or the whatever people. So
All right. So let's go into culture and psyche of what's been happening with NFTs. We follow that here on our channel quite heavily. One of the things that is, to me, the thread that starts to combine the power of these markets is when you create onboarding and ease of use. Here's a good example. This was Xverse now doing a mobile app. Most likely, we're going to see more of these coming to market very quickly. This is going out quickly on iOS. And if this continues to combine itself, it's very possible that this could roll out much like what Ethereum did, in the essence of Ethereum becoming, the NFT, mecca for what's happening in blockchain. And then you look at Layer-2s, which would compare to what's happening right here with Ordinals, and you look at the explosion of Polygon. Not going into sidechains just yet, but the fact that we're starting to see these kinds of use cases, almost as if Stacks or other projects like that have the ability to essentially kind of leverage the power of Bitcoin at the same will, but for a completely different use case. Do you think with those cultural connections, the new development in terms of wallets, ease of use, all of that, is that something that pretty much just sets the tone here for adoption?
well, it's adoption of what? So like we
Ordinals.
have a new app, I think, of Ordinals. Yeah, lots and lots of people have been very interested in this, the idea of like buying NFTs in general and buying them on Bitcoin. And this is before they were even called NFTs. So I'm just kind of phrasing it in the modern way. But the idea is very old. The demand is there. The ease of use will be the key. I think what a lot of people really want to know is like what will last. What will be
Right.
what will be just a fad today, and what will last, to the rest of time. And in order to do that kind of equilibrium analysis, you would have to say what are the lasting features of each project.
Yep.
And so at first, Ethereum got bigger into the whole, like it was doing CryptoKitties, it was doing ICOs. This was like 2016 or something.
Mhm.
And that a lot of that was because of, again, the Bitcoin scaling war made people uncomfortable. They didn't know the future. Everyone thought they knew the future of Bitcoin for 10,000 years, and now there was this big dispute, this big fork in the road.
Right.
And people were like, what's going to happen? And that kind of opened the door. People were more open-minded to Ethereum. That's how I saw it anyway. And so now it may be the reverse, where now Ethereum has competitors, Ethereum killers, projects that are very like clones of Ethereum. It's like horizontal scaling or something. And Ethereum's trying lots of stuff. It's going to proof of stake. It's doing all this weird. Soon maybe it will do roll up research, and it's trying lots of things, which is great, good for them. But I think it's a similar thing where now the Ethereum future is actually less clear, and relative to the Bitcoin future is more
Right.
like, okay, we know what Bitcoin is. And I think that may also explain why there's the resurgence of interest in
Interesting.
the Bitcoin-based NFT today, and it also may point to why that exactly when that may come to an end on Bitcoin, which would be if something else had a more clear future as like the permanent home of all digital art, which I
Yeah.
would think would be like a kind of bit assets sidechain or something. That is my guess, although it's anyone's guess really. But I think people will want to look for something that is like, what is the permanent home of this? Because right now it kind of
Yeah.
feels as though people are figuring it out, right? It kind of
I
feels like very
totally
trial.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, with
So,
what we're seeing, just because it's early age adoption, it's early age development of a technology,
right.
a lot of the things of how we navigated even the introduction of the internet for the very first time, and so many options that were essentially looked to be the answer, but quickly were subsided by better, faster, more efficient technology, which is where we are today. So I think that, yes, to your point, it definitely could be the case. When you think about that and you look at stories like this one, someone that forked Bitcoin Ordinals, the NFTs, onto Litecoin. So this gets me into like this whole concept of now we're looking at complete new utilization, almost like sidechains, I guess, to some sort of extent. But we're getting into now use case scenarios that start to play out in the NFT area that could be very interesting, involving an ordinal that essentially is using a blockchain over here on Bitcoin. With those kinds of scenarios playing in and knowing the kind of talent that we have in blockchain right now, is there anything that you're kind of thinking maybe this could happen in the next 6 months, a year, 2 years in terms of new development?
Yeah, as far as about 1 year from now, I would hope that there would be the bit asset sidechain on Bitcoin where it would not be using regular layer 1 block space, and it would be this new custom thing that is built with efficiency in mind, purely for the. So this is the thing. The other thing is the ordinal design. It is not what most people would have done in order to maximize. It makes in order to make it the whole thing as efficient and useful as possible to support the maximum number of different assets and maximum ease of transferring them. So one thing the ordinals idea does is it stores the entire. If you have a picture or something, it will store the entire image on the blockchain, but that has no real purpose other than to force the image to be available. But that's not really what we need. So, for example, let's say you want to own an asset associated. You want to own an ordinal or whatever associated with an image. You can just have the hash, a tiny piece of information, 32 bytes or even less. You have this tiny piece of information written to the blockchain,
Right.
and then when you want to sell the asset to someone else, you can show them the photo. Their software can hash the photo and check. And so the operation of hashing the photo and then looking it up in the blockchain is, from a human being's point of view, is exactly the same as whether or not you show them the image and they look up the actual image on the blockchain. From the human point of view, it's exactly the same, but under the hood, it's the difference between 4 MB, and 4 MB, and which is 4 million bytes, and just 32 bytes. So it's like it's the difference between hauling, like an entire planet versus like, I don't know, something smaller, something
Yeah.
7 orders of magnitude smaller. So,
Yeah.
so that's not the ordinal thing doesn't do that. So that leads me to think that that's not the equilibrium fate of the. But if you could design a bit asset sidechain where you'd say we're going to do everything as efficiently as possible, and that will drive up the total number of users and total number of assets on it, because it'll still be a similar amount of work, but you have more people, it'll be more
Well,
popular, and you
that's
import
what
everything
I'm
else.
getting at is you potentially have a Polygon play here, much like Polygon performs in a ZK aspect to what is happening with Ethereum. Now you have the potential here maybe for a sidechain to essentially do the heavy lifting, to your point, but yet still be able to resolute ordinals within the Bitcoin blockchain. With that being the case, now you have a whole ecosystem that could be exploding on and around Bitcoin maybe over the next few years. Is there any possibility for that? I mean, I'm looking at Stax's
Yes,
website,
no, I
for
think
instance. You got Gamma. This is a new collect and sell NFTs secure. I mean, this is all happening within a short period of time. Xverse, Gamma. I would say within 6 months, we could see an entire app ecosystem or DApp ecosystem that is making this even more and more easy to use and onboard. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I don't know about the DApp ecosystem. You know, the ordinal idea is that you have a coin. It's basically it's very similar to a colored coin idea. One advantage is it has like the colored coin idea from a long time ago. The color can be like mixed or kind of rubbed off. Because if you mix the coins, you take a bunch of different coins together and then send them out. It's not clear whose color goes where all the time. But with the ordinal thing, it is. So I see the ordinals as similar colored coins. And the idea is that is already something Bitcoin must do. It must already move coins around. But then anything else like dApps or whatever, that would be a very new thing. Part of what has made the ordinal idea successful, I think, is that it was something that cannot be stopped. So it's already
Right.
it was something. It was very Layer-2-esque because it was built completely on top of Bitcoin, in the sense that every time it was being used, it was a completely legitimate use of Layer 1, just interpreted slightly differently. And so a dApp thing would be different. And with Stacks, they may build a lot of things. I don't know if that necessarily means what about the future of ordinals, but I think that this definitely does show that if you have a way of getting the idea out that past the goalie on crypto Twitter or something,
Exactly.
then
Yeah.
actually it will kind of blow up even more because people will be all the more amazed at that something got past the filter, so to
Well,
speak,
that's
because
the
the
thing.
filter filters out almost everything.
Yeah, so that's the thing that, we've noticed even in our own. We track sentiment, a lot of it, just how people are talking about on crypto Twitter and within all the social ecosystems. And it's very rare that you see something break through
Right.
the narrative of what Bitcoin has been about. So much so that, we've started tracking Stacks in its own right, just to be able to look at the sentiment layers that we're watching, how people are talking about in relationship to ordinals and Bitcoin. And it's already started to take off in a very short period of time. In fact, we used to say that there wasn't enough data for us to even see that. So it already starts to validate the point you're getting at, which is this cultural acceptance. And if that continues to roll, it'll be interesting. Why would, say, Layer-2 Labs not do a sidechain concept around NFTs, much like a Polygon would be
No,
for
we
Bitcoin?
will, and we already have, in fact. So that's the bit
Okay.
asset sidechain. So yeah, I wrote a post about this. I think it may have been 2015, or I think no, it must have been 2016, or maybe it was later. I don't know. Someone can look it up. It's called Bit Assets, so it's easy to find it. It's probably much later than that, but it's a while ago. It was is my point. And the idea is very good. I spend the first part of that piece of writing kind of justifying the idea, because it must have been in 2016, because that was the age of the blockchain, not Bitcoin kind of mania. Right. And there are all these people just saying we're going to have like healthcare on the blockchain and whatever. And they really had no idea what they were talking about at all. And that was very distracting for the industry. But but I spent the first part justifying this idea. And I was saying, listen, we have all this stuff. We have many what are called proportional goods, which is like a good that there's like a limited supply, so the collectibles, but also stocks and bonds and money. Well, not bonds necessarily, but so a stock, like it matters whether or not you own 10% of a company. So you say, do you own 10% or do you own 1% or do you own 5%? It doesn't matter the total number of shares. You can say I have 10 trillion shares, but it doesn't matter. You need to know what is the total number of shares outstanding, and then you divide.
Sure.
So that's what I call proportionate good. I think other people do also. But money is the same way. You could say, oh, I have 100 trillion Zimbabwe dollars, but it's like what percentage of that is of the total? So, and then you can say, oh, I have a limited edition watch from whatever, Rolex. Well, it matters if they say only 3 were ever made, or if they say only 10,000 were ever made. That's a big difference. And so those are proportional. It matters what portion you have. you know. And so I was like, that's big. And we have and we have other assets. We have other things that we track. So there are things like a bond is kind of like a little bit halfway between, where you do want to know like how in debt is someone. We have credit scores and things. It doesn't matter to you if you're loaning $10 million. If you're loaning $10 to someone who's massively in debt, or you're $10 million to someone who doesn't have any debt, doesn't have a mortgage even. Those are a different world. And then whenever anything is securitized, you have something where you loan someone money, and then they owe you $20 next year, and you say, I'm going to go to the free market and I'm going to sell this piece of paper for $18 today. And I say, listen, Jeff is going to pay me $20 next year. And you say, okay, I'll sell this piece of paper to someone else. And then for $18 today. Now that's called securitization. And that's a very good process, because you have a situation where someone has a mortgage or something. This lets you get all the loanable funds in the entire economy, and it's very rational. So like before securitization, if you lived in somewhere, wherever it would be, Huntsville, Alabama or something, you could only go to the bank and you had to access the savings of that area to get your mortgage. And you couldn't access the savings in Chicago or Shanghai or something. But now it's all civilized because it's so that also contributed to the housing crisis in the United States. But it was a good thing. Securitization is a good thing. But so I was like, oh, this is a long ramble to say that the bit assets idea, I think, is a very good one. So I think that the idea is good. We have the sidechain, the bit assets sidechain, which is like, it's like in still test form, but it exists and it has a GUI. And I don't think people, should use it yet, but I think that when the time comes, people will appreciate it for what it is, which is something that is designed to most efficiently accomplish this task, and also to last the longest amount of time. And I want to mention one other thing about that post that I wrote a long time ago, and the software we made. I had an idea about people who really care about which ones are first, because to collect like the first NFT, whatever, on Bitcoin or whatever, that has a lot of, that's irreplaceable. That is a kind of a monopoly position that adds to the kind of the limited edition-ness, the uniqueness, and the irreproducibility of it. So I had a conjecture that would be a big deal. And the ordinal idea has a very, very, very similar idea in the ordinal theory. But again, the ordinal theory, I don't think people really even care about how ordinals work or what the ordinal idea is or even how it works. The big thing about the ordinals is like that it is something that someone wrote software for that you couldn't stop, and it does beat the Twitter gatekeepers.
Yeah, so that to me is the most amazing thing that is going on right now, is just this cultural acceptance. But I think also the appetite for what NFTs. It's back to your point earlier when we were talking about timing is everything. If certain things had not happened over the past 2-3 years with Web3 NFTs, the evolution of even Polygon and Ethereum, which kind of showcased this layer 2, layer 1, magical dance that has been occurring, and creating these massive enterprise connectivity scenarios playing out, which then has opened up a ton of other layer 2 projects to play into that. That's where I look at this and I think, wow, what we're seeing right here with Ordinals, Stacks, and some of these other platforms could be just the genesis of the right timing with the right tech that's now applied to something that culturally can't be stopped. And that, to me, is the very powerful element moving forward here for sure.
I think that what you've hit on is an idea that an open system is much better than a closed system. So this used to be something that Bitcoiners would cheer and talk about all the time. We would say Bitcoin versus like if whatever, like R3 or something, they are going to build their permissioned blockchain or whatever. We used to say the open thing will win every time. We say this is why Bitcoin will defeat PayPal or something. So this used to be our song and dance. And then
the mantra.
Exactly as you said, it's a perfect example of when you have something open, you don't really know who's going to build what or what will connect with customers or for how long. But the open thing just has such a big advantage because you just have all these creative people showing up for free every day just because they want to do something with impact.
That's what's so great about it right now.
Yeah,
Around
so
just,
that is what's so great about it. So that's a huge idea, the idea of the open thing being better. And I hope that at least the Ordinals thing does try to get more of the Bitcoin community, more of saying like more of an appetite for novelty. I think
my
the novelty is
prediction
always a good sign.
is that the Bitcoin community will either embrace this and look at this as maybe the rightful passage into a new cultural aspect of where this is going. I think that that might actually happen. Now, there are those out there that will, be OG style and that this is bad for Bitcoin, those kind of things. But I'm looking forward to where this situation takes us for sure. Paul, it's always great to get you on the show chatting about these kind of things. You've become our Bitcoin historian here.
Oh, great. I'm happy to do that.
Well, you've got
Someone
all
has
the
to
facts.
tell. Someone has to tell that history the right way. Okay, right. So
Exactly.
it better
You
be
know where the
me.
bodies are buried, as they say. But
Hope
anyway,
so.
it's been great having you on the show. Thanks so much for stopping in
Okay.
today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, so you guys, of course, I would love to get your input. Make sure and drop some comments down below. What do you think about ordinals and how they may have an effect on Bitcoin in the near future? Maybe is and are we looking at the birth of a layer 2 kind of concept here with Bitcoin? And back to the point that Paul and I were talking about is the evolution and the timing, all based on culture, what's happened with NFTs over the last bit of time. Maybe that is contributing to what's going right now with Ordinals. Love to get your comments. Make sure and join the Diamond Circle. And of course, it's very simple for you guys to reach me. It's out there on Twitter @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.